So, Jesus, as Jesus does, is doing something that the Pharisees don't like. He's sitting and he's eating and spending time in close proximity with sinners and tax collectors. And the Pharisees and the scribes are grumbling about his association with those that they consider to be unworthy. And so Jesus, in, again, true Jesus fashion, tells them 3 stories, actually. This is the third of the 3 stories. The first story is the parable of the lost coin. The second story is the parable of the lost sheep. And here we get the parable of the prodigal son. And in all of these stories, something is lost or something goes away, and then it is found, and then the community throws a party. It's probably my favorite part of all 3 stories. Celebrate when lost things get found. So, but in this particular story, it's not a thing or a sheep, but a person, a son, who's not lost, but who chooses to go away. And so, in the midst of this tension between Jesus, who's sitting with the sinners and tax collectors, and the Pharisees who were questioning him, Jesus tells this story, aiming to draw the lines, draw some distinction between judgment and grace. You see, most of us think that this story is about helping sinners realize that they can come back. But it's important to remember the purpose of the story that he's telling is for the religious elites who believe that they are beyond reproach. And so, through this parable, Jesus challenges the notions of righteousness that the Pharisees believe that they have. By welcoming those that they considered unworthy, he invites all, both lost and the self-righteous, to reconsider their understanding of love, acceptance, and belonging. And this invitation is important for us too because it forces us to confront our own assumptions about who is worthy of love and grace. And so what Jesus aims to do with these 3 stories is to redefine the parameters of God's embrace, showing that the divine love of God is expansive and inclusive and reaches out to all who feel alone. So as I said, I want to spend several weeks with this passage, but today I want to focus our attention to the younger son. See, at the beginning of this story, the younger son pleads to the father for his inheritance. And this is important because you wouldn't receive an inheritance, and you still don't receive an inheritance until somebody passes. He's asking for his inheritance prior to his father's passing. By saying, "Father, give me the share of all that would belong to me, the wealth that belongs to me." The younger son might as well have said, "I wish you were dead." And so this would have been shocking and offensive, not just to the father, but to those who were hearing Jesus tell this story. This request would be a radical rejection of not only the Father's authority, but also the love and values that have shaped his identity. How many times have we done the same thing? How many times have we, knowing that we are loved and accepted and cared for, said, I don't need that. I'm going to go and I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to reject all that I've been taught, all those who care for me, because I know better. I'm going to go do my own thing. Our need for independence, especially as young people, is a powerful thing. However, in pursuit of this young son's independence, the son chooses a path that leads him away from the love that is already readily available to him. The phrase here, distant country, serves as a metaphor for his spiritual wandering. When the son embarks on this journey, he does so with excitement and a sense of adventure. I'm going to go learn something that they can't teach me. I'm going to go be something that I can't be here with my Father. Yet each step that he takes away from home distances him from the love and safety and belonging that he had known before. Many of us can relate to this experience where we might chase after desires, material wealth, social status, or momentary pleasures, believing that they are going to fulfill our needs, only to discover that they leave us often feeling even more isolated and empty. But this choice the son makes to depart from his father and from his family reflects a choice that each of us must confront. We all seem to strive for our own autonomy and our individuality, but we may inadvertently, in doing so, reject the relationships that ground us. The younger son's journey embodies this tension between longing for freedom and the inherent need for love and connection. So this decision to leave, this decision to take his father's inheritance, forces us to examine where we might have chosen paths that lead us away from home and the acceptance that awaits us at home. In verse 13, we see that the son squanders all of his inheritance. It says he traveled to a distant region, and there he squandered his wealth in dissolute living. And soon enough, he faces the harsh consequence of his choices. And this moment becomes a breaking point for him. He finds himself in dire circumstances, far removed from the comforts and security of his father's home. Losing all of his inheritance is about more than just losing money, but it reflects a deeper sense of his identity and his purpose. Everything that his father had given him, he had used up, and it was gone. Everything that had connected him to his father still was no longer in his possession. And so he felt that. Many of us have objects, mementos, inheritances, maybe not monetary, but things that we would say are more valuable to us than they would be to any other person, because in a small way they connect us to the people that we've lost. And so when the son squanders his inheritance, when he loses all of it, he also loses that connection, that feeling of connection to his father. So he reaches this breaking point, and this breaking point is something that resonates with all of us. Life has a way of bringing us to these moments of reckoning where we must confront the realities of our decisions. But in many instances, it's these dark valleys that force us to find a way back to ourselves, force us to return to the loving arms that once embraced us. So as we reflect on the younger son's decision to leave home, we can ask ourselves, what does home mean to us? Because many of us know that home is not simply a physical structure, but it symbolizes belonging, safety, and unconditional love, the foundation of who we are as beloved children of God. In a world that often leaves us feeling disconnected, we too may find ourselves searching for home, seeking comfort in various places, only to realize that these sources may lead us further away from fulfillment. This longing for home speaks to a deep desire within each of us to experience acceptance and love that is unwavering. And so when we consider the choices that we make daily, how often do we find ourselves seeking validation in external pursuits? Many of us navigate life driven by cultural narratives that suggest that our worth is tied to what we achieve, how we are perceived, and what we possess. And so as we journey through life, we must confront the question of who is it that defines our identities? The younger son's experience encourages us to consider those moments when we stray from home, seeking happiness in our own distant countries. You see, central to this narrative is the theme of belonging, or our own belovedness. To recognize ourselves as God's beloved children carries a powerful implication for how we understand our own identities. The voice of our Creator calls us by name, proclaiming that we are loved unconditionally and cherished beyond measure. In our journey of faith, accepting this identity can often be difficult. It requires vulnerability and honest confrontation with the fears and insecurities that cloud our understanding of ourselves. Many people grapple with doubts about their worthiness, questioning whether they truly deserve the love of God. And these fears can cause us to drive towards actions and decisions that lead us further away from our true home. When Jesus, after his baptism, hears the voice affirming his belovedness, "This is my son, my beloved, with whom I'm well pleased." He's then led into the wilderness, where he faces temptations that challenge his own identity. In a similar fashion, we are confronted by voices that tell us to prove ourselves, to earn the love and approval that we so desperately seek. And amidst the noise of these competing voices, we arrive at a profound truth that God's love is not dependent on our performance. When we visited Jesus' time in the wilderness a few weeks ago, we talked about the things that he was tempted with. Things like power and influence. Things that we often seek in order to achieve our own validation. And Jesus says, no. God, the Father, just got done telling me that I am his beloved, with whom he's well pleased. That's who I am. I don't need the power and influence that you are offering me. I know I'm beloved by the Father. And so the Son is, in his own way, dealing with his own wilderness experience. Being tempted by the things that we often seek in the world. The Son has wandered to a distant country. And there's something happening in this story that we can infer based on how the story ends. And that's the posture of the Father. See, it doesn't say what the Father's doing at this particular moment while the Son is gone. But we know how the Father responds when the Son returns. And so we can guess what the Father may have been thinking or how he may have postured himself during this time. And when you really stop to think about it, it's a beautiful image. See, we know from later on that when the Father sees his Son from a distance, he's filled with compassion and runs to embrace him. Underscoring the boundless love and grace of God, a love that readily welcomes home those who have wandered away regardless of their past. And so because we know this, we know that the Father, during this time when the Son is gone, is anxiously awaiting his Son's return. And he remains in a posture of longing and acceptance. He's not prepared when the Son returns to demand explanations or apologies. He's simply ready to welcome the younger son with open arms. And knowing the Father's love and anticipation challenges our own feelings about how we envision God. See, too often we, when we go astray, assume that God is either not waiting for us or waiting for an apology or an explanation. But knowing that the Father is waiting expectantly with no expectations, he's not awaiting an apology or an explanation. He just awaits us. God just awaits us. No matter how long we've been gone, no matter what we've done, no matter how we feel about ourselves, God is standing and awaiting our return with open and loving arms. Sometimes we have a hard time believing that within ourselves. I'm not worthy. I'm not beloved. I'm not good enough. I've done too much. And our own view of ourselves then projects onto others. Well, if I'm not good enough, they certainly aren't. And the cycle continues. But when we recognize our own belovedness, when we remember that the Father is waiting for us with open arms, it makes it a lot easier to go back. And it makes it a lot easier to invite others to come with us. No matter who they are, no matter what they've done. Knowing that God is waiting for all of us with open and loving arms. Each step we take toward returning is a step toward healing and wholeness. And so we'll continue to ponder the implications of this story in the weeks ahead. And we'll explore the transformation that lies in the decision and the act of returning. But for now, let us take with us the promise that God's love remains unwavering and is always waiting for us to come back into a relationship of belonging. Leave this place today reminded of our true identity. You are beloved. You are welcome. You are cherished. No matter how far you think you've wandered, the promise of love awaits you at home, inviting you to embrace who you are, which is the beloved of God. You are cherished and adored by God. Our journey home is not simply a physical distance, but a spiritual awakening, a return to the one who calls us each by name and who opens wide arms to receive us and whispers to us, "You are my beloved, on whom my favor rests."